After so many years together, my husband's behavior suddenly changed. He began to hurt my mother, to speak cruelly to her and to me, and to lash out at his own children. But when he started blackmailing my mother over her inheritance, I knew he had crossed a line. Our family, once dependent on him, was now united against its former protector. Dear friends, your comments mean the world to us. Like this video and write where you are watching us from. We will be happy to send you our regards. I used to think the old Lawson house breathed with me, wooden ribs rising and falling to the rhythm of our routines. At dawn, its floorboards sighed under my slippers. By midnight, its pipes hummed lullabies that kept insomnia at bay. On the first Friday of August, the house exhaled differently, like it had swallowed a secret too big to hold. That morning, sunlight spilled across the kitchen in thick bars, illuminating steam curling from my mother's teacup. Loretta Gardner Lawson, Mama Lo to the neighborhood choir and Grandmama to my grown children, sat at the table in a blue church hat she refused to remove indoors. The hat was her armor, she said. Take it off, and gossip slid straight into the soul. I, Regina, her only daughter, stirred oatmeal on the stove and pretended the day was ordinary. Yet my pulse drummed Morse code against my wrist because last night Mama Lo had whispered something I wished I could unhear. Your husband mocked me when he learned about the inheritance, baby. $3 million made his manners vanish. Darren and I had married 27 years ago on that very back porch, thinking love could spackle every crack. Now the cracks ran deeper than the foundation itself, and money threatened to split them into canyons. The spoon clinked louder than usual. Mama's voice, soft but steady, floated across the steam. He called me a withered ATM, Gina. Then he said the machine needed a new PIN, him. Her attempt at humor wobbled, brittle as sugar glass. The oatmeal thickened. My resolve did too. I pictured Darren's sneer the way he leaned over Mama's walker yesterday, breath laced with bourbon and entitlement. From upstairs came the muted bass of our son Corey's playlist and Maya's brisk heels as she prepared for a nursing shift. They were adults now, yet still carried childhood loyalty like a shield. The house, large enough to swallow echoes, held its breath when Darren's footsteps thudded down the hallway. He entered the kitchen, Ty half nodded, the scent of expensive cologne failing to mask bitter whiskey. "Morning, ladies," he said, voice sweetened by false civility. "Loretta, you sleep well? Dream about changing that will?" The air tightened. Mama adjusted her hat. I turned the burner off, letting silence boil instead. Darren's smile faltered when neither of us answered. He tapped a manicured nail on the quartz counter. Click, 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 like a fox testing the lock on the hen house. "Gina, we should discuss responsible investment strategies for the—" He paused, eyes darting to the stairs as Corey emerged. My son's 6-foot frame blocked the entry like a sudden storm cloud. "Nobody's touching Grandmama's money," Corey said, voice calm but edged. Darren's cheek twitched. "Boy, adults are speaking." He stepped forward. Corey didn't flinch. I saw the moment my son's childhood trust shattered like porcelain meeting tile, and new shards would soon cut everyone barefoot. Had I noticed a crack that deep before, perhaps the next fracture could have been prevented. Maya appeared behind Corey, holding her nurse's badge like a talisman. She addressed Darren without blinking. "Insult her again and I'll log every bruise you leave as evidence." Darren scoffed, but his posture sagged a millimeter. Fear, once invited, rarely leaves alone. Mama's teacup rattled. I reached for her hand. Darren's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and muttered, "Meeting. We'll finish this." He left a trail of cologne and tension in his wake. The front door slammed, that wooden rib of the house cracking louder than ever. Mama whispered, "Storm's coming, child." I squeezed her fingers. Then we bored the windows together. In her eyes flickered gratitude and something fiercer, defiance wearing Sunday best. By noon, the August heat chased us onto the shaded porch where cicadas droned like faulty alarm clocks none of us could silence. Corey paced the planks, recounting Darren's escalation, first sarcasm, then threats, and last week a shove disguised as an accident that sent Mama's walker skidding across tile. each memory sharpened like broken glass under a spotlight. Maya jotted notes in a spiral pad, dates, witnesses, photos. She'd spent clinical rotations documenting domestic injuries. Now she cataloged her own family's fractures. Mama watched the street, eyes scanning like a lighthouse searching for ships veering off course. "Your daddy never raised a hand," she murmured, grief threading through the words. "But he taught me storms don't ask permission. They just arrive." She tapped her cane twice, a signal we'd learned, meant enough fear, more action. Inside, we assembled at the dining table strewn with laptops, bank statements, and county probate documents. The mahogany surface, once home to Sunday roasts, now served a feast of strategy. We anchored ourselves around a symbol Corey produced from his backpack, a black and white chessboard once belonging to my late father. He set it in the center, pawns already arranged. "Granddad always said," Corey began, sliding the queen forward, "protect the heart of the board and the game protects you." Mama smiled softly, then moved a pawn, her consent to battle. The metaphor took root, each square a choice, each piece a potential sacrifice. Maya outlined practical steps, update locks, place security cameras, document every interaction. I called Attorney Hamilton, Mama's longtime friend, requesting an accelerated reinforcement of the trust clause that barred spouses by marriage from claiming inherited funds. He promised to draw papers by Monday. Yet, on the battlefield of family, legal armor sometimes feels like tin foil when fists become artillery. A text buzzed on Corey's phone. He frowned. "Dad, dinner at 7, all of you. Non-negotiable." Maya's pen stilled. My stomach twisted into sailor's knots. "He's planning a scene," I said. Mama stood slowly but with spine unbent. "Then we bring umbrellas," she said. At 6:30, Darren returned, parking his black SUV at an angle suggesting laws like vows were open to renegotiation. He entered the kitchen carrying a bouquet of roses and an apology smile that wilted under fluorescent lights. "Loretta, forgive a man under stress." I spoke out of turn. He offered the flowers. Mama touched a petal. Crimson bled onto her fingertip, food, coloring from artificially dyed buds. Symbolism stared us in the face, garish and cheap. We sat to dinner. Roasted chicken Darren had catered, as if money could baste over rot. Conversation ambled through safe topics until Darren clinked a glass. "I've prepared a proposal." He slid an envelope across the table toward me. "Investment plan to triple the inheritance in 5 years." Corey's jaw flexed. Maya raised a phone, pretending to scroll. I opened the envelope. Figures, percentages, a signature line for me alone. Mama spoke first. "Darren, trust is earned, not gambled." He exhaled through his nose, nostrils flaring. "With all respect, ma'am, 3 million can't sit in some sentimental savings account." His voice sharpened. "And Gina, as head of household, I have fiduciary duties." Something inside me snapped like a violin string tuned too tight. "Head of household?" I asked, tone steady as winter ice. "Fiduciary duties?" Darren leaned back, confident. "Exactly." Corey pushed his chair back. Wood screeched. Maya's phone recorded silent video. I tore the proposal in half, then quarters, the paper sighing like wings losing flight. Darren's face purpled. He stood. The chair toppled. "Ungrateful." His fist hit the table, silverware jumping like startled fish. Mama flinched. Rage ignited behind my eyes. Before Darren could step toward her, Corey positioned himself between them, a rook guarding the queen. Darren's fist froze midair, collision with consequence. In that breathless gap, I realized games end when one player refuses the board's rules. After Darren stormed upstairs, the house became a powder keg waiting for a spark. I tucked Mama into the guest room, kissing her forehead as rain began drumming the roof, nature's drum roll for the conflict ahead. Maya installed a camera above the hallway, discreet but vigilant. Corey stood sentry outside Mama's door, phone ready. I retreated to the master bedroom where Darren packed a duffel, movements jagged. "We're talking," I said, voice gentler than the storm but laced with steel. He zipped the bag. No, you're listening. I sacrificed for this family. That money secures our future. Lightning flashed, illuminating his features, desperation wearing arrogance like ill-fitting armor. I stepped closer. Your future, perhaps. Ours? We'll secure it another way. His eyes hardened. You think the kids side with you now, but they'll thank me when tuition's due and you've squandered fortune on sentiment. A memory surfaced. Darren teaching Corey baseball swings, laughter echoing, Maya on his shoulders at the county fair. Love existed once, but some loves are time release capsules. They dissolve, releasing poison years later. I felt the sting now, acidic and irreversible. Leave tonight, I whispered. Thunder swallowed my words, yet he heard. He grabbed the bag and brushed past. At the door he spat, Without me, you're nothing but a nurse with bills. The slam rattled windows. I sank onto the bed, tears blurring stormlit shadows. Maya entered, sat beside me, holding my hand. Mom, we've got this. Her voice carried the conviction of someone who stitches flesh for a living. She knows wounds and, more importantly, how to close them. Downstairs, Corey locked the front door, then slid Father Chess Queen into his pocket. Symbolism complete. Protect the queen, protect the game. Rain tapered to drizzle as midnight approached. Mama slept, but her walker stood like a sentinel by the bed. Maya brewed chamomile. Corey checked locks again. I opened my journal, writing one line. The storm announced itself with roses dyed red, but real blood will not fall on these floors. In the hushed dark, cell reception dinged, a voicemail from Darren. Static, heavy breathing, then words dripping with menace. It's not over. Sign or suffer, Corey replayed it, jaw set. We saved the recording, another pawn placed with intent. I lay awake listening to the house breathe, timber strained but unbroken. The chessboard downstairs waited, pieces poised for morning, and somewhere beyond the dripping eaves, Darren's engine prowled the street like a wolf testing fences. The inheritance drew predators. Our unity would have to become the trap. If I'd known how fast threats evolve into fists, maybe I would have strengthened the walls sooner. But dawn was coming, and with it, our first counter move. Morning light arrived in bruised strips of lavender and gold, as though the sky itself carried yesterday's injuries into dawn. I'd barely slept. Every creak in the hall sounded like Darren's return, yet adrenaline moved my limbs with unnatural precision. Corey brewed strong chicory coffee while Maya scanned overnight footage from the new hallway camera. At 3:12 a.m., a silhouette circled our porch, too broad for a stranger's curiosity, too cautious for an innocent passerby. The figure lingered near Mama's bedroom window, then retreated into darkness. Corey's jaw flexed so hard I swore I heard enamel strain. He's testing boundaries, he muttered. Predators nudge the fence until they find a weak post. I squeezed his shoulder, silent agreement and silent promise. No post would splinter on our watch. Across the kitchen, Mama adjusted her hat with deliberate dignity. Let him test, she said. Storm doors slam shut when wind's high enough. By 8 o'clock, a lawyer's courier arrived with reinforced trust documents. The ink hadn't dried before Darren's name popped onto caller ID. I let it ring. He followed with a text. We need mediation. Noon. My office. Attached was a photo of our mailbox torn from its post, lying like a decapitated sentinel on the lawn. The unsubtle symbolism stung but also clarified. He wouldn't knock on the front door anymore. He'd batter it. Mediation, I thought. A word that implied neutrality, yet history warned it could be an ambush. Still, courts looked kindly on spouses who tried diplomacy first. I texted back a single word, agreed, then called Attorney Hamilton and our pastor, Reverend Kane, asking both to attend as witnesses. Before leaving, Maya slipped a slim USB drive into my purse. Backup of last night's footage, she said. If Dad gets theatrical, play his shadow on the wall. I kissed her cheek, the taste of fear metallic on my lips. Corey volunteered to drive. the chess queen hidden in his jacket pocket, a superstitious anchor he refused to abandon. Darren's brokerage occupied a glass tower downtown. In the lobby, walls gleamed with success stories etched into brass, names of people who trusted him with futures he probably mortgaged for sport. He greeted us in a conference room lined with panoramic city views, but the real altitude pressed inside his voice. "I'm glad you came rationally." He wore a charcoal suit, a silk tie patterned with tiny crowns. I wondered if he dressed in metaphors intentionally. Attorney Hamilton began formalities. Reverend Kane offered a prayer Darren didn't bother to bow for. Darren slid a folder across polished mahogany, another proposal, thicker than the one I'd shredded. 3 million can become 9 in 7 years, he said, the recession-proof plan. He tried to sound paternal. It landed predatory. I countered with the updated trust papers. Mama's estate is irrevocable. No spouse can claim or manage it. Darren leafed through pages, face-cooling degrees per second. "You've caged opportunity," he said quietly. "What kind of daughter traps her own mother's wealth in a tomb?" Hamilton noted, "A tomb that pays Loretta a generous annuity, one she controls." Darren's veneer cracked. He stood, palms flat on the table. "Without my guidance, those funds rot in low yield. When property taxes rise, renovations come due. Who foots that?" Corey's calm voice cut in. "We will." "With jobs, not threats," Darren snorted. "Jobs? Bartending and night shift nursing?" His stare drilled into Maya. "While I sit on Wall Street connections?" The air tightened until the city skyline outside looked blurry. "Meeting's over," I said. Darren's chair toppled as he lunged, but Kane's baritone boomed, "Peace, son!" Darren halted inches from Mama, who hadn't risen. She simply stared into his eyes and whispered, "There's only one crown in this family, and God already placed it." Darren recoiled as though scripture scalded him. Corey produced the USB, plugged it into a screen, and played the porch footage. Darren's silhouette froze on the wall, midnight, vandal immortalized in pixels. Hamilton warned, "Harassment charges, stand ready." Darren's mouth opened, but no words crawled out. We left him amid shattered illusions and floor-to-ceiling windows suddenly mirroring a smaller man. Outside, thunderheads massed, though the forecast called for clear skies. The Lawson house awaited, shaky but still ours. Mom cupped my cheek. "First strike blocked," she said. I answered, "Walls reinforced." Yet inside, dread whispered, "Predators escalate when cornered." 2 days of uneasy quiet passed. Too quiet, the kind spiders spin before rain. Tuesday evening, Mama and I sat on the porch shelling pecans, her favorite calming ritual. The sunset painted the neighborhood in sherbet hues when Corey burst through the screen door, phone aloft. "Dad filed an emergency petition," he said. "He's accusing us of elder financial abuse, claims we're coercing Grandmama for her estate." My heart punched ribs. Maya joined, reading aloud. "Temporary guardianship request citing Loretta's diminished capacity. Hearing set for Friday." Mama scoffed. "Diminished? Child, I run the church bake sale like a general, yet." Courts loved paperwork, and Darren's allegations carried his brokerage's prestige. We called Hamilton. He instructed medical evaluations, affidavits from Mama's physician, character witnesses. "Prepare for scrutiny," he warned. "Judges weigh perception fast." Maya scheduled a cognitive exam. Corey drafted statements from choir members attesting to Mama's mental sharpness. But legal prep couldn't shield us from Darren's next blow. At 1 a.m., we woke to smoke alarms shrieking. Pantry window shattered. A canister hissed tear gas across linoleum. Corey grabbed a wet towel, barreled toward the source. Outside, taillights fled. Police and fire trucks arrived. Officers found the house intact, but gas residue proof of intent. Evidence bagged, statements given. Still, sirens' echo left adrenaline ghosts long after silence returns. Detective Ruiz pulled me aside. "No fingerprints yet, but we'll patrol tonight." His sympathy felt sincere, but Law moved slower than terror. Maya treated Mama's irritated eyes, hands steady though her own lashes shimmered with tears. "He's playing war," she whispered. I hugged her. "Then we fight smarter, not harder." Morning came smelling of burnt rubber. We replaced shattered glass with plywood, symbol and shield. Reverend Kane organized church volunteers to stand watch. Neighbors rotated porch vigils with thermoses of coffee and quiet resolve. Community turned into armor. Friday's guardianship hearing unfolded in a paneled courtroom tinged with stale coffee and reverberating coughs. Darren arrived flanked by his attorney Patricia Voss, polished, predatory. Mama wore a deep violet suit, hat festooned with a single dove pin. Symbolism maintained. Voss argued elder manipulation, misses. Lawson altered her trust under duress from financially unstable family. Hamilton countered with exam results. Mama scored 29 out of 30 on the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, and letters from bank officers praising her vigilance. Judge Sampson, silver-braided and sharp-eyed, asked Mama directly, "Do you feel coerced?" Mama adjusted her dove pin. "Sir, the only pressure I feel is high blood when folks waste this court's time." Laughter rippled. Even Sampson's lips twitched. Voss bristled. She presented photos of our plywood window as evidence of chaotic household. Unaware police reports pinned vandalism on an unidentified male matching petitioner's build. Ruiz testified, linking Darren's car to the tear gas escape route. Darren's confidence evaporated drop by drop. Sampson ruled, petition denied, restraining order issued. Darren to surrender firearms and remain 200 yards away. Darren's jaw clenched. Voss whispered, but he shook her off. As we exited, Darren spat, "Paper shields burn." Maya held up her phone, recording again. He sneered and vanished. Outside, humidity wrapped us like damp cloth. Corey exhaled. "Queen's safe." Mama squeezed his arm. Game lasts longer than one gambit. If survival were a ledger, by Saturday we felt solvent, until the phone rang at dawn, shrill as a fire alarm. Police dispatcher. Darren found unconscious in his SUV, single-car crash on Old River Road, blood alcohol sky high. Car totaled, but he'd emerged with minor injuries. Hospital kept him overnight, release scheduled Sunday. Shock ward with grim vindication. I never wished harm, only distance. That afternoon, Maya discovered our insurance downgraded without notice. Darren, still partial policyholder, had filed premium suspension. Repairs, medical bills, all jeopardized. Rage boiled, but fear hissed louder. What else could he reach from a hospital bed? Hamilton initiated emergency policy separation. Still, hours passed when we lived uninsured. Night draped itself heavy. Porch volunteers dozed in lawn chairs, cicadas buzzed like static. At 2 a.m., a distant engine revved. Corey peered through blinds, headlights crawling slow. He phoned Ruiz, cruiser dispatched. Minutes later, glass shattered upstairs, Mama's room. Alarm erupted, I bolted, heart hammering. On the landing, I froze. Darren, halfway through the broken window, arm bleeding where shards bit flesh. Restraining order ink was still wet, yet he crossed it like a faded street line. He lunged. I dodged. Years of repressed rage converting into adrenaline clarity. Corey tackled him. They crashed into a dresser, wood splintering like fireworks. Mama hit the panic button Hamilton installed. Sirens triggered externally. Darren punched Corey's jaw. Corey countered with restraint hold learned from college rugby scuffles. Maya arrived wielding a cast-iron skillet, eyes blazing. Darren froze, realizing family he'd once fed now carried iron for defense. Police burst in, weapons drawn. Darren surrendered, wrists cuffed amid jewelry box debris. As officers led him out, Mama stepped forward, cane tapping hardwood like a gavel. "The house breathes for those who protect it," she said. Darren glared, but whatever predator lurked behind his pupils flickered, extinguished by the realization of public defeat. Ruiz assured charges, burglary, assault, RO violation, felonies. Ambulance treated Darren's arm. Crimson dripped, unchosen symbolism finally real. Neighbors lined sidewalks, bathrobes, and phone cameras capturing the spectacle. Darren's empire of intimidation collapsed beneath porch lights and community witness. Inside, we surveyed damage. Dresser shattered, window gaping, but walls still upright. Chessboard lay on hallway table, pieces scattered by impact. Corey retrieved the queen, unchipped, and set it upright at board center. "Still standing," he whispered. We huddled in the living room. Mama prayed, a steady cadence that stitched our ragged breathing into calmer rhythm. Rain started, soft at first, then drumming, washing blood specks from the porch, baptizing wood against future fires. As dawn paled the sky, Maya wrapped gauze around Corey's bruised knuckles. "Night defends queen," she teased, voice cracking with relief. He smiled, wincing. I opened my journal, writing, "When wolves breach the door, it isn't the bite that determines survival, but how loudly the pack inside howls back." We knew the legal battle wasn't finished. Arraignments, trials, financial disentanglements awaited, but the siege was broken. Mama leaned her head against mine. "Storm didn't take the roof this time." I kissed her hat. "Because the house learned to fight thunder with its own?" Outside, sunrise painted shards of glass amber, turning scars into prisms. Yet I couldn't ignore the final chess pieces still loose on the board. Financial sabotage, public opinion, our own splintered trust. And somewhere in the shadows of restitution papers, another move waited, patient as a vulture circling a wounded heart. The week after Darren's arrest should have felt like inhaling after a long dive, but relief proved slippery. It began on Monday, when Mama's debit card failed at the pharmacy. The pharmacist whispered over the counter, "Insufficient fund, essay," as if embarrassment might soften the blow. Yet I knew her trust paid monthly dividends. Untouchable. Airtight. Something rustled deeper than a bureaucratic glitch. Back home, I logged into Mama's online account. The balance read 0.00, red text glaring like an accusation. A new line item appeared, State of Georgia, Asset Preservation Writ. Darren had petitioned a civil court claiming emergency injunction to safeguard marital property, insisting Mama's trust was a laundering front. A judge, misled by slick affidavits, froze distributions pending review. My lungs constricted. Legal armor we'd hammered together now showed seams. Corey read over my shoulder, fists clenching. "He works the system like a casino," he said. Maya called Attorney Hamilton, who cursed, rare for him, then promised an expedited hearing. But hearings cost time, and bills require currency that arrives on time, not in theory. Mama listened, hat tipped forward, jaw set hard. "He underestimates old payphones," she murmured, dialing Deacon Earl, chair of the Church Benevolence Fund. I tried protesting. She raised a palm. "I gave offerings 40 years. Time they offered back within hours, grocery deliveries appeared, anonymous congregation gifts. Still Mama's pride wore each bag like a debt stamp. Tuesday night, another blow landed. Lights flickered then, darkness swallowed rooms. The power company recorded an online termination request signed Regina Lawson. Fraudulent yet effective. We fired up candles, their glow turning walls into restless, tall shadows. Community again answered, extension cords snaking from neighbor porches, generators humming like distant bees, but humiliation dripped heavier than sweat. As candles guttered, Mama's voice floated through the quiet. "Thunder may own the sky, but remember, roots drink silence." I smiled at her metaphor, yet inside my resolve trembled. Darren's sabotage sketched a map of fears I hadn't admitted even to my journal. What if community fatigue set in? What if courts stalled too long? What if the children's unshakable faith cracked? Corey paced the den, queen chess piece rolling between his fingers. "Dad plays attrition," he muttered. "Starve morale, not just money." Maya rubbed her temples. Hospital double shifts left red crescents beneath her eyes. I boiled water on the gas stove for them. Small comfort, but comfort nonetheless. thinking how love sometimes disguises itself as leftover tea. Wednesday dawned with humidity and headlines. A local tabloid plastered Darren's mugshot beside a soft focus image of me, broker's wife, accused of turning heirloom fortune into family slush fund. The article regurgitated Darren's elder abuse claims spiced with anonymous sources. It painted Mama as senile, me as manipulative, the kids as freeloaders. The comments section birthed vipers. I wanted to hurl the paper into the trash, but Mama unfolded it, studied each slanderous sentence, and shook her head. Return lies with light, she said, but light travels slow unless directed. That afternoon, Reverend Kane recorded a video interview, Mama quoting scripture, citing bank ledgers, laughing at the idea she could be duped by loved ones. Within hours, it climbed local social feeds, her dignity turning smears into confetti. Night brought storms, real ones, lightning slicing sky while wind hurled branches like javelins. Candlelight flickered harder. Around midnight, Corey's phone app pinged. Motion at the front gate. A sedan idled, engine rumbling. Two hooded figures stepped out, raised smartphones, and photographed the plywood window. One sprayed graffiti, "Thieves bleed in lurid orange." Corey called Detective Ruiz as Maya and I snapped pictures from inside. Sirens arrived fast enough to scatter the vandals, but the message glowed under porch lamps like a brand on flesh. I scraped paint at dawn, each stroke releasing sparks of fury. Underneath, cedar boards remained unscarred, a tiny victory. Yet my reflection in the storm door revealed exhaustion. I thought of Darren in a holding cell, orchestrating chaos with a few calls and forged signatures. Rage rose, mingled with guilt. How had I spent decades ignoring red flags? How had I let love erode into leveraged threat? Mama stepped beside me, laid a hand on my shoulder. Baby, guilt is swampland. Builds nothing but mosquitoes. I nodded, but tears slipped. Not from pain, but from the tightness of holding strong too long. She wiped one away with the tip of her cane. Even cedars bend in storms, she whispered. They just don't break. Thursday morning, I dressed for court. Charcoal suit, Mama's dove pin at my heart. Hamilton drove us downtown. Inside the courthouse, marble corridors echoed footsteps like gavel strikes. The emergency injunction hearing convened in Judge Alvarez's chamber. Less pomp, more surgical precision. Darren, at defense table with Voss, sported gauze on his stitched arm, milked limp sympathy. Hamilton presented forensic account statements proving funds predated my marriage by decades. Maya testified to Mama's cognition. Corey described Darren's threats. Ruiz offered surveillance tying him to vandalism. Voss countered with financial jargon and accusations of a household cult. Darren sat stone-faced until Hamilton unveiled audio of his midnight voicemail. Sign or suffer. Gasps rippled. Alvarez's brow arched. Ruling. Injunction dissolved. Darren fined for malicious filing. We exhaled, yet victory tasted metallic. Because Voss requested continuance on divorce proceedings, promising subpoenas to unearth Regina's hidden assets. Paper warfare marching on. Outside, reporters clamored. I stepped to microphones, voice steady, though hands trembled. My mother's generosity built scholarships, soup kitchens, not slush funds. We stand for elders whose voices are often drowned by louder lies. Cameras clicked. In their flashes, I glimpsed exhaustion turning to quiet courage. Back home power had been restored. Hamilton's paralegal threatened lawsuit for wrongful termination. Yet a different letter waited in the mailbox's replacement. Notice of IRS audit. My knees buckled. Maya steadied me. Another volley from Darren's playbook, filed before restraining order. Hamilton would handle, but each new battle poured acid on stamina. By evening, neighbors gathered in our yard for light parade. String lights looping trees, extension cords forming glowing constellations. Children drew chalk doves on the driveway. Choir ladies sang hymns. Community decided darkness, literal or figurative, would not find vacancy here. As hallelujahs drifted, Mama squeezed my hand and whispered, "Light-directed, child." After midnight, I wrote in my journal, "When sabotage multiplies, resilience must compound faster." Yet even pen strokes wobbled. Anxiety gnawed edges of reason. I closed the book and wandered hallways, checking locks like counting rosary beads. Near Mama's room, I heard murmuring. She prayed at the window, voice low but fierce, each word a sandbag on floodwater. Friday dawned sticky. Thunderheads retreated. Corey found his bank account overdrawn. Fraudulent wire attempts triggered security lock, yet held funds hostage. Maya's credit card declined. Darren's last financial tantrum before judge's freeze reached children too. I stared at breakfast toast gone cold, guilt spiking again. Corey shrugged. "Oh, Mom, it's money. Yours is worth more than digits." That afternoon, Detective Ruiz visited with news. Anonymous tip revealed Darren's off-site storage unit. Warrants obtained, officers uncovered ledgers of shell companies, receipts for tear gas, a notebook mapping our utilities. Evidence stacked high enough to bury him. Trial date set for October. Yet as daylight faded, my internal storm intensified. Resilience felt performative. Every step carried sandbags of worry. Will Mama's heart withstand stress? Will Corey's schooling stall? Will Maya's compassion curdle into cynicism? My own capacity felt measured in frayed threads. That night, alone on the porch swing, I pressed the dove pin until it left a crescent imprint. I scanned darkness for headlights, not vandals. Instead, Reverend Kane approached, offering thermoses of cocoa. We talked about faith, fatigue, and forgiveness's tricky timeline. He said, "Hate is a double-edged hoe. You swing it, you till your own grave." I knew he was right, yet part of me sharpened the blade anyway. Besirim Saturday's dawn brought a quiet so fragile I feared exhaling. Church volunteers cleaned graffiti remnants, Mama supervised, hat-tipping approval. I brewed coffee with cinnamon, her favorite. Mid-morning, Corey burst through the doorway, newspaper in hand, front page headline, broker released on bond, health concerns, Trump flight risk. A judge, different circuit, allowed Darren house arrest citing cardiac irregularities. He'd be confined to his condo 2 miles away, too close for restraining order comfort. Shock paralyzed me, but Mama's eyes narrowed. A viper in glass cage is still venomous. Hamilton filed immediate motion. Still, bureaucracy crawled. Detective Ruiz promised ankle monitor tracking, extra patrols. But memories of tear gas and shattered windows hissed caution. We fortified, added deadlocks, reinforced glass, installed motion-sensing lights that flared at squirrel weight. Community watch rotated. Corey quit bar shifts to stay nights. Maya swapped to day schedule. I arranged safe deposit duplicates of every evidence file. Preparation became lullaby and alarm. Wednesday evening, while Mama dozed, Corey and I played chess. He advanced the queen's rook. I studied board. "You okay, Ma?" I hesitated. "I'm tired of winning small and bleeding big." He moved a pawn, grinned. "Sometimes survival is checkmate enough." We laughed softly, tension momentarily disarmed. Yet at 2 a.m., alarms shrieked, backyard floodlights erupted. We rushed outside, no intruder. Instead, a drone hovered, camera lens gleaming. Corey flung a garden rake skyward. Blades clipped props, drone spiraled into azalea bushes. We retrieved the wreckage, memory card labeled with Darren's brokerage logo. Police confiscated. Violation of RO, evidence of stalking. Mama stood on porch, robe fluttering, eyes wild but unbroken. He thinks he's Hawk. Forgets even hawks can crash. The children ushered her inside, but I remained staring at cracked drone shell reflecting porch light. Symbolism born again, predator's eye blinded by its own arrogance. Morning news alerted bond revocation hearing. Voss argued remote drone not Darren's operation, but card branding buried plea. Bond revoked. Darren to await trial in county jail. When deputy handcuffed him, a reporter asked, Any remorse? He muttered, "Family should stay in line." Footage aired on loop. Public sentiment pivoted. Weeks passed without sabotage. IRS audit cleared after Hamilton's mountain of documentation. Insurance reinstated. Window repaired, graffiti painted over, power stable. Community watch relaxed into neighborly gatherings rather than duty shifts. Yet victory settled uneasily. Trauma lingered like aftertaste. Sudden sounds triggered startle reflex. Bank statements made my pulse race. Maya began group therapy for caregivers. Corey returned to classes but kept the queen in his pocket. Mama saw a cardiologist for blood pressure spikes. And I vacillated between gratitude and residual anger. One October morning before trial, Mama asked me onto the porch. Autumn light dappled sycamore leaves. She held the chess queen. "You carried us, child." But game's not just defense. She pressed the piece into my palm. Time to stop playing on Darren's board. Build your own. That afternoon, I visited a downtown commercial realtor. By Christmas, an under-contract sign would stand on an old storefront, future home of Queens Haven Financial Literacy Center, a nonprofit teaching elders to safeguard inheritance from wolves in wool suits. Corey designed the logo, a white queen chess piece with a dove pin crown. In my journal the night before Darren's trial, I wrote, "Games end, lessons echo." I closed the book, and for the first time in months slept without dreaming of shattered glass. But dawn would bring the courthouse again, and as gavels echoed, I'd learn whether justice weighed heavier than money, or whether his lawyers could tip the scales one final time. Dawn on the first day of trial bled vermilion across the Cooper River, as though the sun itself had studied Darren's case file and decided justice required a warning flare. I rose before the alarm, nerve endings taut, heart drumming a tempo older than fear, something ancestral that once sent women to stand at village gates while warriors parleyed. Downstairs, Mama already sat at the kitchen table in her plum suit, adjusting the dove pin with hands that trembled only until the clasp clicked. She looked at me over her teacup. "Remember," she said, "a court is just a church where truth is scripture." Recite it clear, Corey entered next. Charcoal blazer hiding the bulk of his frame, yet failing to mask tension coiled along his shoulders. The white queen chess piece gleamed from his breast pocket, small beacon amid dark fabric. Maya followed. Her nurse's scrubs traded for a deep blue sheath dress that armored fatigue behind professionalism. No one spoke of nightmares, of drones, of shattering glass, but silence carried their echoes. The house, pulsing with collective heartbeat, almost seemed to push us out the door with a whispering imperative. Finish this. Outside, autumn prickled the air, scattering sycamore leaves like parchment fragments foreshadowing verdicts. A police cruiser idled at the curb, our escort. Mama insisted on using her walker despite offers of a wheelchair. "I arrive under my own power," she declared, and the officer merely nodded, perhaps sensing that dignity moves faster than wheels. The courthouse steps loomed, marble cold beneath rising sun. Reporters lined the entryway, lenses glittering, each flash a mosquito bite on composure. I paused halfway up, feeling the building vibrate, whether from traffic or destiny I couldn't tell, and realized the steps felt shorter than memory. Fear shrinks paths, resolve restores them. In the vestibule, federal flags hung motionless, yet the air rippled with hushes, coughs, the shuffle of jury prospects summoned by civic duty into a saga they'd rehearse in dinner table retellings decades hence. Hamilton met us outside courtroom 3B, legal pad bristling with sticky tabs like feathers in a warrior's headdress. "Today is the prosecution stage," he reminded. "We'll open with the vandalism trail, then pivot to financial fraud. Your testimony closes the afternoon. Finish strong." He motioned to an evidence cart bearing the wrecked drone, the gas canister, and a binder of shell company ledgers. Darren's shattered mirror, each shard reflecting a different lie. I swallowed, tasting metal. Hamilton placed a hand on my elbow. "Truth isn't just defense, Regina. It's the sword." His eyes flicked toward the defense table where Darren sat shackled at wrists and ankles, suit jacket hanging too loose since jail food trimmed arrogance from his frame. Across from him, Attorney Voss whispered, but he barely blinked, eyes fixed on the jury box as though willing 12 strangers to forget midnight voicemails and broken windows. Judge Alvarez entered, mahogany gavel, more like a conductor's baton than a weapon. United States versus Lawson, the clerk intoned, and the courtroom settled the way water settles after stonefall, surface calm, depths churning, opening statements unfurled. Prosecutors weaving timelines of intimidation, wire fraud, elder abuse, Voss countering with claims of family. Hysteria, unfounded persecution, business disputes misread as threats. Each sentence dangled alternate realities, inviting jurors to choose which universe felt truer. Mama squeezed my hand whenever exhibits appeared, as though channeling strength through brittle bones. When the drone was held aloft, a collective intake of breath rippled. Footage played, grainy 2 a.m. Silhouette, aerosol billowing, Darren's ghost haunting his own credibility. Jurors leaned forward. One woman pressed knuckles to lips. The morning ended with Detective Ruiz describing storage unit discoveries, tear gas receipts, diagrammed utility lines, a ledger titled Project Pressure. Voss objected to relevance. Alvarez overruled, noting pattern of calculated intimidation. Noon recess sounded like a bell ending round 1 of 12, yet fatigue already tugged at eyelids. In the hallway, Reverend Kane appeared carrying a thermos of peppermint tea and low-voiced prayers. "Final note," he whispered. "Remember, grief may speak, but let hope testify." I pocketed the phrase, small talisman for the witness stand I'd soon occupy. As I re-entered the courtroom, Darren's gaze caught mine. Something between plea and threat flickered, then collapsed into emptiness. For a heartbeat, pity sparked, but memory poured cold water. Drones, smoke, the word BLEED scrawled above my porch. Pity drowned. Prosecutors called Mama after lunch. She rose, hat steady, cane tapping, cadence of determination. On the stand, her voice swelled. Church choir resonance tempered by grandmotherly warmth. She recounted inheritance intentions, Darren's mocking tone, the night he shoved her walker. Jurors scribbled. 2 nodded unconsciously, as though grandchildren honoring elder testimony. Voss attempted skepticism. "Mrs. Lawson, isn't it possible you misheard my client's words?" Mama leaned into microphone. "Honey, my hearing aid cost more than that suit." I heard every syllable, laughter rippled, even Alvarez's stern mouth twitched. Next came Corey, towering figure in gray, queen piece, pinned at lapel. He detailed drone interception, porch graffiti, restraining order violation. Voss pivoted, insinuating Corey's aggressive tackle of his father proved violent temperament. Corey answered, "I tackled the danger, not the man." Silence thundered. Then Maya, voice steady as surgical sutures, presented medical photos of Mama's bruises, tear gas residue analysis, and hospital records of Darren's blood alcohol level. Voss leaned hard into familial bias. Maya countered with chain of custody receipts and time-stamped body cam footage, facts battered insinuation until it frayed. Mid-afternoon, my name echoed across oak panels. I walked the aisle between benches, each step ringing louder than heartbeat. Sworn in, I faced 12 strangers yet felt intimately known. My story dissected in headlines, my motives speculated by comment sections. Prosecutor lie guided gently. Financial charts first, then emotional arc. I spoke of threats wrapped in roses, power cuts, and fear-soaked nights. I described hearing my mother's teacup rattle like brittle bones when Darren's SUV prowled outside. Words spilled, but not tears, those I'd spent long ago on pillowcases now laundered stiff. Then Lai asked, "Mrs. Lawson, why press charges instead of settling privately?" I inhaled. "Because private settlements keep predators hunting other porches." Courtrooms light up the field jury. Eyes shone, some with moisture, others with flint. Voss approached, stilettos clicking like countdown. She projected sympathy. Mrs. Lawson, you've endured stress. Could trauma color your recollections? I answered. Trauma clarifies. It strips illusion like paint thinner. She tried a different brushstroke. You kept your mother's fortune outside marital assets. Wasn't that secrecy? I met her gaze. Protection. Secrecy would mean silence today. Finally, she produced an email Darren had sent me years earlier, joking about cashing in on Mama's nest egg one day. She implied complicity. I explained context, his gallows humor after a mortgage refinance. Prosecutor Lai objected, Alvarez sustained, the email faded, relevance shredded. When testimony ended, I stepped down, lightheaded, as though gravity paused. In the gallery, Mama's smile steadied me. Kane tapped 2 fingers to his heart, signal that hope indeed testified. Court adjourned before defense case. Tomorrow, Darren would take the stand, if Voss dared. Reporters thronged corridors. I offered no statement, exhaustion sealing lips. Outside, dusk-painted courthouse columns crimson. I half expected thunder, yet sky remained hush, storing electricity for later. At home, neighbors greeted us with casserole warmth and cautious optimism. Generator gone, we dined under functioning lights, but conversation tiptoed around tomorrow. Before bed, I wandered to the chessboard. Pieces still arranged as we'd left them, queen upright, king absent. I considered the symbolism. Our strategy never centered on destroying Darren, but protecting what mattered. Yet games end when checkmate looms, not when players tire. Around midnight, a courier delivered an unmarked envelope. Inside, a flash drive and note in block letters, play before court. Corey slotted it into his laptop, video opened. Grainy footage showed Darren in jail visitation, speaking to a man whose face remained off frame. Darren's voice clear, if the jury turns, drop the bomb, release the clinic photos, ruin Maya's license, Corey's records. My stomach plummeted. Bomb, photos. We rewound. Again, same thread. Who shot the video and what clinic photos? Maya's eyes widened. A memory surfaced. A night shift patient, once died of fentanyl overdose. Investigation cleared her, but gossip websites still kept images of her weeping in scrubs, weaponizable out of context. Corey's records likely referenced college bar fights sealed after community service. Darren prepared scorched earth. We forwarded clip to Lai. At 2 a.m., prosecutor called back. Chain of custody uncertain, but admissible for impeachment if authenticity verified. He'd dispatched digital forensics by sunrise. I glimpsed victory's horizon retreating, cautionary mirage. Mama murmured scripture. No weapon form shall prosper. Yet her eyes shimmered with fatigue. Sleep slipped through grasp. I lay listening to autumn wind, shimmy shutters, mind replaying Darren's jail whispers. He would not surrender. He'd drag our children through mud, salt Mama's legacy. I felt fury ignite, hot core that once would have scared me, now oddly steady. I rose, penned letters to Maya and Corey, reminders that past mistakes are chapters, not full books, that shame cannot bloom unless watered. I sealed envelopes, ready for whatever bomb morning delivered. Court resumed with attention thick enough to slice for evidence. Prosecutor Lai's tech expert authenticated the midnight footage, origin unknown but metadata intact. Alvarez allowed limited use pending corroboration. Voss protested, but stained hands can't wave away prints. Lai called surprise witness, a low-level jail guard named Terrence Bloom, anonymous courier revealed. Bloom testified Darren offered $20,000 for smuggling phone and orchestrating social media leaks. Gasps rippled. Jurors leaned in. Voss objected based on witness credibility. Bloom admitted past DUI, yet his testimony carried timestamps matching surveillance. Alvarez allowed. Defense scrambled. Voss whispered heatedly. Darren paled. Nonetheless, he insisted on taking stand. Ego's last gambit. He began polished. Claiming love for family, desperation misinterpreted. Jurors listened, stone-faced. Then Lai cross-examined. Mr. Lawson, did you commission project pressure? I considered security measures. Lai displayed ledger, including tear gas and drones. Insulation from burglary. Who burglarizes with chemical weapons? Jury eyes narrowed. Darren's composure cracked hairline fissures. Lai sprung footage of jail conversation. Voss objected. Hearsay, overruled for impeachment. Darren stammered. Sweat beaded. I was frustrated. Family conspiring? So you plan to blackmail your children? Lai pressed. Silence thickened. Darren's voice dropped. I wanted leverage. Word hung like guillotine blade. Lai concluded, leverage against truth. Defense rested, shrunken. Jury instructions followed. Conspiracy, intimidation, elder abuse, wire fraud. 12 strangers filed out. Clocks ticked louder than heartbeats. While we waited, Maya squeezed my hand until knuckles blanched. Mama whispered, whatever comes, truth already won in hearts. I wanted to believe. Corey pulled the queen piece, set it atop bench railing, silent prayer carved in plastic. 78 minutes later, jury returned, record quick. Forewoman stood, verdict sheet trembling. On count 1, guilty. Count 2, guilty. Count 3, guilty. Count 4, guilty. Each gavel crack echoed, but final word, guilty, resonated like cathedral bells shaking pigeons into flight. Darren slumped. Voss exhaled defeat. Sentencing scheduled in 6 weeks. Bail revoked permanently. Marshals cuffed Darren. As they escorted him, he turned, eyes swimming between rage and sorrow. For a heartbeat, I mourned the man I once loved, the coach, the father, the partner. Then I remembered drones, and mourning found better subjects. Outside, cameras flashed again, but this time their light felt less like invasion, more like dawn. Community members cheered. Choir ladies sang a refrain of victory is mine, voices rising above courthouse traffic. Mama lifted her cane, conducting invisible orchestra. We drove home beneath a sky scrubbed clean by autumn breeze. On the porch, neighbors had strung bunting, white doves against purple cloth. Inside, power hummed, fridge stocked with casseroles bearing love instead of sabotage. I stood at the chessboard. Corey handed me the queen. I set it beside the king piece he'd quietly retrieved from storage unit evidence. Game pieces reunited, board reset for no one to play, symbol that conflict needn't resume to validate past courage. That night, exhaustion ceded territory to something fragile and bright. I opened journal, pages blistered with anger, fear, resolve, and wrote, a gavel can sound like thunder, but thunder only announces rain. Justice waters the ground so new roots grip deeper. Sleep finally arrived, dreamless. Yet even in darkness, I sensed tomorrow stirring with questions. Sentencing, financial rebuilding, scars stitched but tender. Still, thunder had rolled and walls remained standing, cedars bent not broken. And somewhere beyond our windows, autumn winds shifted, carrying seed pods of future possibilities rather than ash of battles won. The courthouse smelled of polished oak and anticipation on sentencing day, a Monday so cold the breath of every observer twirled like restless spirits in the crisp air. Mama Lo wore winter white, a suit the color of first snow, and her dove pin caught sunlight filtering through frosted windows, scattering shards of warmth across unforgiving marble. Corey stood beside her in a charcoal overcoat, chess queen talisman tucked in his inner pocket. Maya flanked me, fingers laced with mine, pulse steady yet fierce. Outside, reporters huddled behind metal barricades, microphones poised like hungry sparrows awaiting crumbs of drama. Inside, we settled on the prosecution's side as Judge Alvarez emerged, robe swishing with the hush of finality. Darren shuffled in wearing the regulation khaki of county jail, shackles whispering against the tile, an outfit that erased the memory of power suits and silk ties. For a brief moment he scanned the gallery, gaze landing on our row. His eyes held something unfamiliar. Perhaps the memory of choices made in darker rooms than this, for even remorse seemed too extravagant for him to afford now. Alvarez began with formalities, docket numbers, statutory ranges, victim impact statements allowed. Hamilton read ours first, measured, unflinching. He spoke of tear gas nights, bank accounts frozen like wounded limbs, the graffiti threat bleached into phantom stain. Then he pivoted, voice softer, to the intangible. Children's trust turned battlefield, a grandmother's morning routine laced with vigilance, a neighborhood that learned to post watch when streetlights flickered. Mama requested to address the court. She rose slowly, cane tapping cadence of determination, hat radiating quiet sovereignty. "Your Honor," she began, voice resonant as any Sunday hymn, "I pray no bitterness roots in my heart, but accountability grows best in open air." She described legacy as more than money. "It's the quilt of our deeds stitched onto future generations." Her gaze fixed on Darren. "Bulldoze my house and I'll build on rubble, but threaten my children's souls and you'll meet the cornerstone you overlooked, faith." Prosecutor Lai submitted restitution totals, medical bills, property repair costs, and the operational seed funding. We'd lost during asset freezes $147,322.47. Darren's attorney pleaded mitigating factors: first offense, alcohol dependency, stress of market downturns. Alvarez listened, fingers steepled, gaze unmoved. At last Darren spoke. He wavered between apology and self-pity, words like splinters lacking grain of sincerity. "I failed my family. Fear of poverty drove me." Yet jurors who had returned to watch merely shifted, unimpressed. They had already heard his midnight threats echo through grainy footage like confessionals of a ghost refusing to rest. Alvarez delivered sentence with the cadence of carved granite: 10 years federal confinement, 3 years supervised release, and restitution paid from seized assets, including the Belizean accounts now thawed into moral currency. He mandated a mandatory financial ethics program and recommended substance abuse treatment, though even therapy can't rewrite code engraved by decades of entitlement. When the gavel fell, sound rang like the final thunderclap of a passing storm. Darren's shoulders slumped. Marshals ushered him away, shackles clinking a departing dirge. Outside, reporters broadcast verdict-size headlines, yet inside, silence grew lush, relief sprouting where dread once strangled. Driving home, we watched winter sun slant across sycamore trunks, gold-edging bark like healing scars. Mama exhaled slowly, hat brim quivering. "Storm's spent, baby," she whispered, voice equal parts weariness and wonder. But I shook my head gently. "Storms never disappear, Mama. They compost into soil." She nodded, eyes bright. "Then let's garden." Gardening began as paperwork. Queens Haven Financial Literacy Center closed escrow mid-March, a brick storefront on East Bay once occupied by a defunct antique shop. We painted walls sea glass green, color of renewal, and hung a sign featuring Corey's logo, a white chess queen wearing a silver dove crown. Volunteers from the church patched plaster. Maya's nursing colleagues offered wellness clinics, and Hamilton hosted Know Your Trust seminars free for elders citywide. Opening day dawned breezy, scent of Confederate jasmine mingling with new paint. Mama cut the ribbon using the same scissors that once trimmed wedding programs at my ill-fated nuptials, redeemed now as shears of reinvention. Inside, visitors drifted among stations labeled Mortgage Clarity, Inheritance Safeguards, Digital Scam Defense, each manned by community experts. In a quiet corner, Corey displayed the dented drone encased in glass beside tear gas canister parts, an artifact warning that predation evolves when vigilance sleeps. Local media covered the launch, framing it as a Phoenix story. One reporter asked Mama why she invested in others so soon after trauma. She lifted her chin. "Pain is tuition," she replied. "Tuition wasted if we don't teach the next class." Her words traveled beyond city lines, shared by national outlets hungry for resilience narratives. Donations poured in, $20 each from pensioners, $2,000 from an Atlanta tech accountant whose mother lost savings to a romance scam. Within weeks, Queenshaven scheduled satellite workshops at rural libraries, its reach grafting onto counties where financial predators once fed unnoticed. Meanwhile, life's smaller gears clicked forward. Maya resumed full-time nursing, but Sunday afternoon she taught clinic employees CPR, bridging health and finance, because heartbeats matter even in spreadsheets. Corey finished his degree in data analytics. His capstone project anonymized fraud patterns among seniors, later adopted by the state attorney general's office. He still carried the chess queen, though now it lived in his desk drawer, watching more games than guarding them. I enrolled in a nonprofit leadership course, balancing coursework with grant applications. On restless nights, I reread my journal's storm chapters, tracing inked sentences that once trembled, but now felt steady. Trauma lingered. Alarm still jolted me upright. Unexpected mail still spiked adrenaline, but each day the edge dulled, replaced by cautious confidence. One rainy April morning, Hamilton delivered a cashier's check. The restitution installment released from Darren's seized properties. The amount equaled the exact figure we'd lost plus interest. $147,322.47. I held the envelope, its weight both literal and symbolic, proof that debts can travel home, albeit on delayed trains. That afternoon, we deposited half into Queenshaven's Sustainability Fund. The other half established the Lawson Scholarship for first-generation students in financial ethics programs. Corey insisted the scholarship essay prompt revolve around the metaphor of chess, storms, and doves. Letters from strangers arrived weekly. My aunt rewrote her will after your seminar. We installed cameras. Landlord fixed lighting. Thank you for telling me scams start with secrets. Mama read each aloud during dinner, voice warm as cornbread. The house, once echoing with fear, now filled with testimonials, soundtrack of seeds sprouting, yet healing is never linear. One night in May, a thunderstorm cracked like artillery. I jolted awake, heart sprinting. Visions of shattered windows and aerosol clouds flooded senses. I padded to the kitchen, found Mama at the table steeping chamomile. She gestured to a chair. We sat, sipping silence until thunder rumbled softer. Finally, she said, storm memory is body's smoke alarm. It screeches, then hushes once we check the stove. I breathed deep, and for the first time believed alarms could coexist with calm. Summer arrived gentle, azaleas blushing outside the Lawson house rebuilt stronger than blueprints required. On Juneteenth, chosen purposely, we hosted a Roots and Wings cookout, collard greens, peach cobbler, and laughter marinated in reclaimed joy. Choir ladies sang spirituals under string lights. Kids chalked chessboards on driveway squares. The drone display sat on the porch rail. Conversation starter turned cautionary tale. Mid-evening, Reverend Kane tapped a glass. Regina, will you speak on journeys? Spotlight sudden, I felt pulse quicken, but Mama's encouraging nod anchored me. I stepped forward. Cicadas hushed as though eavesdropping. We gather, I began, not to celebrate a verdict, but the soil it gave us. Storms uproot, yes, but they break hard ground so seeds lodge deeper. Tonight, we honor every hand that planted hope when the sky was black. I lifted a small box and revealed the chess queen. This piece once guarded corners of a board. Now she stands as invitation, play wiser, protect broader applause, drifted up with fireflies. Later, as guests departed, Corey and Maya joined me on the porch swing. We watched Mama laugh with neighbors, hat tipped back, Kane tapping cadence to a harmonica riff. Think she'll ever slow? Maya mused. Corey smiled. Queens don't retire, they just change games. A soft breeze rustled sycamore leaves, carrying hints of salt from the harbor and aroma of barbecue. I closed my eyes, breathing night air, free of fear. Behind lids, storm still roared, but from greater distance, like history echoing across canyons rather than halls. I felt journal pages beckon. Unfinished chapters awaiting ink, not of survival, but of vision. That night, beneath a quilt sewn of Mama's faded choir robes, I wrote, "We are children of thunder and architects of lighthouses." When lightning tests our rafters, we do not rebuild identical walls. We craft halls where warnings become wisdom, where doves perch on chessboards, where queens teach pawns they were never helpless. Before sleep claimed me, a final thought fluttered. Darren's sentence would end one day, parole papers fluttering like restless crows, but we had planted an orchard of accountability. Fruit ripens independent of old storms. Weeks later, Queens Haven received a state grant to replicate in 3 additional counties. On opening night of the second branch, I placed the chess queen on a polished shelf by the entrance. A plaque read, "Storms come, Queens stand." Communities grow. Visitors pause to read, some touching the piece as though it hummed hidden power. Perhaps it did. The alchemy of trauma recast into guidance, of broken pieces remosaic into legacy. Watching them, I felt certainty bloom, not of invincibility, but of rooted resilience. And so, as cicadas droned and the moon sketched silver across magnolia leaves, I closed this chapter, not with a neat bow, but with a compass pointing forward. Because stories like ours never truly end. They ripple through scholarships, through workshops, through a grandmother's laughter, rising above the hum of a city that once trembled, but now listens. The Lawson house exhaled again that night, wooden ribs lifting with contentment, not dread. Its breath mingled with ours, a chorus of lungs inhaling tomorrow unafraid. And somewhere in the stillness, a dove fluttered across the roofline before settling into the hollow where storms cannot reach. Wings folded, guarding dreams we had only just begun to dream.